and welcome to episode 109 of the Random Thoughts podcast with a special guest, Dr. Dominique Condo. Hey, Dom.
Hi. Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
So exciting to have you as part of Core Advantage and on the podcast to chat about it. So for those of you that don't know, Dom is now our resident nutritionist. He's here once a fortnight on Monday nights, and a superstar nutritionist. Do you reckon I chased getting you to work here about 6 months?
I think so. I think it was about 6 months.
It was a protracted process.
Yes.
But I knew it'd be worth it. And the early feedback, I don't know how much of you've been getting from the athletes, but we've been getting a lot from the parents and athletes. And that is that they just love it. It's a missing piece of the puzzle. It's really
great
good
to hear.
Yeah,
it's been really positive feedback and really good fun working with them.
Yeah. Awesome. So I thought a good starting point might be to go back and for you to take us through how you ended up here. So at the moment you are you have a PhD in nutrition. Mm-hmm. You are the nutritionist for Geelong Football Club.
Yep.
And nutritionist for the Melbourne Boomers, and you lecture at Deakin University.
Yes.
Is that all of your things? I listed them all?
That's pretty much all of
plenty.
them. Yeah. Yes, that's pretty much all of them. Vice President of Sports Dietitians Australia as well.
Are you?
Yes.
You're even more of a big shot than I knew. Vice President, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, VP, but I think that's the repertoire you've covered most things.
Cool.
Yeah.
So did you always want, like, when you were in high school, were you like, I want to be a nutritionist? Like, how did it all start?
Yeah, I did. It was actually a funny story. I always wanted to be a lawyer. My whole high school life, you could say.
Yep.
So I was really gearing towards being a lawyer and working towards that. And I got into year 12, to the final year, and we were doing our subjects, and I got called into one of the principal's office, and they said that there's been a bit of a mix-up with the subjects, and the one that I was going to do, and I can't even remember what it was. It may have been something a little bit random, like tourism or something like that. I no longer could do with my stream of the rest of my subjects. So the only subject that would fit with everything else I was doing was nutrition.
Right.
And I thought, well, I've never done nutrition before. So I said, well, do I need to know anything, any prior knowledge? And because I'd come from a biology and science background,
so you had a science background.
They said, nope, you'll be fine. And I just fell in love with it. So from the first day,
really?
I really,
was it like
really
a
loved
like
it.
you fell in love with it, but did you know it was a career or was it?
At that point, yes.
I
remember coming home and saying to my parents, well, I no longer want to do law.
Oh, how did they go with that?
Didn't go down that well at first.
What's your ancestry?
Italian background.
Italian. I think they would have much preferred a lawyer.
I think so. Definitely. But
did they crack it, or were they?
They are pretty supportive. So it was that they said, well, if that's really going to make you happy, but have you thought about the career possibilities and whatnot? And I just thought, I just love it so much. So went for it. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. And at that stage, getting into nutrition straight away, nutrition and dietetics from school was quite difficult. Okay. It was up at around the 98 mark to get in.
Was it really?
Because they only took about 30 students a year.
Really?
It was a very high demand.
Wow.
And not many universities offered it. So it's definitely...
So you're from Adelaide originally?
I'm from Adelaide.
You were at high school in Adelaide?
Yes. And this is all in Adelaide as well.
Okay.
Uni in Adelaide too.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I actually just missed out on getting a spot in the bachelor degree.
Yep.
So I went the back way and I did biomedical science through Adelaide Uni, and I finished that and then went straight into my Masters of Dietetics.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fun.
Yes.
And did you then convert that into a PhD, or did you do a PhD on... You go and do that on top of?
You do that on top of. So at that stage, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do in nutrition. Mm-hmm. I always loved sport and always been quite active myself.
Yeah, you're super fit. Dom's crazy fit.
Oh, no, not quite. But never really played a lot of team sport, though. It's just always been...
like training.
Yeah, love training and always been a massive footy fan, so been a big supporter of sport. But I always knew that was a passion of mine. But the degree, the nutrition and dietetics degree, is quite focused on clinical dietetics, so working in the hospital settings, and they really gear you up to head down that career. So at that stage I thought, well, that's what I want to do as a full-time career. There's not much in sports nutrition that was available, and I really loved pediatrics and working in the clinical pediatric space. So after university it was quite difficult to get a job, but I got a part-time job in Women's and Children's Hospital in Adelaide, and then part-time doing some community dietetics, and started up my own private practice as well, and that private practice was focused more in sports. So I went through and I did my accreditation to become a sports dietitian, which at that stage was run at the AIS.
So do you have to go up there for a part of that?
Yeah. So you're there for 4 days to do that course, and then there's a few things you have to follow up from there. So I did that, and then just tried to get into sports as much as I could, as far as on the side of what I was doing in the hospitals and whatnot. And
what does the hospital work consist of, if I'm asking?
Yeah, of course. So a clinical dietitian, you're on the wards. So you would, every day would be something different. You would get referrals to go and see new patients. And in a pediatric hospital, I was working a lot on the burns ward. So when kids come in with different stages of burns, you would need to look after the nutrition behind that. So it was lots of it was a crazy busy job.
So I'm always with the questions. So, so with burns, what's the emphasis? What's the nutrition? Because it wouldn't have occurred to me, and I'm sure plenty of people listening, that there's nutritional support for healing with burns.
Absolutely, yeah.
How does
So
that work?
energy requirements go up almost twofold.
Really?
Yeah, so the stress reaction and obviously your body is extremely dehydrated, so that comes into it a lot. And a lot of the kids, because they are so small, that they actually can't eat much at that stage. So it's all tube fed.
Because little kids don't eat much. Like getting my kids to eat, like it's really hard.
It's hard, and especially when they've gone through something so horrific. So it's around getting the formulas right for tube feeding to make sure that you meet all of their requirements at that stage. And again, that will depend on the severity of the burn as to how much impact that has.
So that's pretty high precision stuff. That's not stuff you don't want to get that wrong. Like that's
absolutely.
So your early stuff it wasn't like you were just easing your way into it.
No, it was it was thrown into the deep end pretty quickly. And I guess at that stage, though, I just thought there's something missing in what I was doing day to day. I guess it was a very reactive type of role, but I felt like, I was coming in and doing the same thing over and over. And I wasn't, I guess I'm interested in finding out more about why things happen and the prevention of things. So that's when I thought, I never thought I would be interested in research. I thought after university I was done with it and didn't want to read another paper again. But after about a year out, I realised that I really craved that and missed that, because I'd come from such a science background. And there was an opportunity at Women's and Children's to do a PhD in the area of maternal and infant nutrition. So that's the path that I went down as far as my PhD goes. And I continued to stay in the area of sports. I got a role with one of the Skinfold leagues, so that's equivalent to the VFL in South Australia. So I worked with the Roosters there, and my private business grew, and that was really focused on working with athletes.
Cool. And so how the leap from that to Melbourne?
Yeah, so the PhD went for 3.5 or so years, close to 4 years.
That's pretty good, because some people take longer,
Some people take longer, some people take shorter time, but during that time, I guess when I reflect on that period of my life, it was a really enjoyable period. That, don't get me wrong, the PhD was very stressful and a lot of work, but the networks and the contacts that I was able to make and I started lecturing at a university. I worked as research coordinator. I really, grew in the sports space. So it allowed me to have that flexibility as well to get my hands in a few different things. And then towards the end of that, my husband got a job in Melbourne. And it just happened to be timing-wise, I was finishing up my PhD. And I thought, well, it's a time when I'd be looking for more of a full-time role in Adelaide and either working more full-time in my private business or looking for a research-based job. But a short-term contract at Deakin came up. So I thought, well, how about I try and apply for it? And it was a maternity leave position. And I actually didn't get that position. It was a 12-month job. So I thought that's okay, but I had very good feedback from the interview, and a couple of months passed, and my husband's job that he got here, they were quite flexible. So they said it's here until this period, which was around 6 months that we could have. Yeah, it was really good. Because my only thing I said was that I need to have a job before I go there because I'm just I work a lot and I love to work.
I can't imagine you sitting around the house. You would go crazy.
Yes. So I said, I need to have a job.
Yeah.
So then I contacted...
You just have training 10 hours a day.
Exactly right. And that'd be scary. That'd be very scary. So I contacted the head of school at the time who interviewed me and just said, is there anything going at all? I will do research assistant work, just something to get me over here. And they actually found a short-term, 3-month full-time contract to do some teaching. Okay. So I thought, why not? So I came over and I really put everything into that 3 months. I met as many people at Deakin as I could, and I noticed that there was a gap in the area of sports nutrition. So we're a school of exercise and nutrition science, and we've got amazing exercise scientists and we've got amazing nutritionists, but there was a gap in the person that sat in between.
That's great.
So I started to talk about that, and they were really receptive. They've been incredible.
They're very responsive.
Yeah.
I serve on the advisory board to the School of Exercise and Sports Science, and I love it because it's just really interesting, and you get to sort of see what's going on, what's in the future, and so forth. But what I've been really impressed with is just how responsive they are. Like if you say this needs to be better, it just happens. It's not like it's not what I expected. I expected things to be a little more glacier-like pace-wise. They're quite agile, aren't they?
Absolutely. They really, really are, and been so supportive and allowed me to really take the sports nutrition program to another level at Deakin and build it, which has been so much fun. So that 3-month contract turned into a 6-month contract and then turned into a permanent role.
Position. Yeah. And how soon after that did you start working with Geelong?
So that all happened around June, July in 2015, and I started working with the Cats that next pre-season, so in November. Yeah. So Deakin and Geelong have a fantastic partnership, and our sports science side of the school was very much already embedded within the club. But again, the nutrition aspect wasn't there, and it was just timing. They were looking for a new dietitian, and it came through the contacts at the time with the Deakin being at the club, and so the opportunity opened up, and it's been really fun. So that's a part of my Deakin role, which allows us to have students come in on placements and do some really great research projects. So it just allows the work to happen between our organisations.
That's great. And then the Boomers. So tell us about that. So because that's when you and I first started working together.
Yes.
What's the difference? What has surprised you working with the girls compared to, say, working with the boys in footy? What do you notice about the boys and what do you notice about the girls?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So firstly, I think, and as much as I enjoy working with the boys, the girls are definitely more open to advice, and so a bit more receptive,
more coachable.
more coachable.
Yeah.
Like to do what you say a little bit more. But no, I think the biggest thing, well, what really surprised me from the girls working with the boomers, and I'm now working with AFLW as well through the
Cool.
Cats,
Yeah, great.
and that's different again.
Is
so
it?
I think what surprised me so much about the girls with the boomers with how professional they were to start with, and how much knowledge they sort of had around nutrition as well. So they really were using language like, I want to be stronger and I want to get the best out of my performance. And not that the boys don't use that language, but I guess it was a little bit of a surprise to me because I've worked with a lot of female athletes in the past where they probably aren't focused so much on that side of their performance and on the strength, but more so some body image concerns, really, body composition.
Yeah, right.
And although that's always going to be a part of,
an important part of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I really found that the boomers girls just used a different language and had a different mindset around it, which was really quite refreshing and nice to see. Yeah, absolutely. I guess what's been a big challenge now with the way that the season's going with basketball is just the shorter seasons.
Yeah.
So the way that we can play 2 or 3 games over a weekend and getting that right with how you fuel and recover to then do it again from a performance perspective, but from a recovery and injury prevention, getting so that right is it's difficult.
Selfishly, I love it because it makes our roles more important.
Yeah. Yes.
In a well spaced out season, you can not do a great job in the off court stuff, and you can still go okay. But my view is that these days with the new, and it's just because of the TV rights, basically the TV rights shortened up the season and condensed it. I think it suddenly makes what people might have dismissed as 1%ers into all of a sudden, oh, these are 1%ers.
Yes.
Like it changes the conversation about how you can recover, what you can do. And I think, the girls are mega receptive to that because they just, if you've got you might have a game on Saturday night and then a game on Sunday morning. Like it can be that tight.
Absolutely.
In terms of the actual technical process of your nutritional consultation, can you walk us through what you do and sort of how it happens?
Yeah. So the consults here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or even just the average consult with an athlete. Like what are you looking for? What are they looking for?
Absolutely. So I guess from a logistics perspective, it goes from anywhere between 45 to 60 minutes. And it's really about understanding, firstly, where that athlete sees themselves and what goals they have. So I will see people that may want to gain muscle, others that may want to reduce body fat or change body composition, through to athletes that are really struggling with fatigue. So
I've been distracted. Did you hear that thumping bass?
Yes.
That's Lizzie's car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. She wouldn't have any other way.
Sorry,
that's
she was very excited to see you. She was saying last week that she needed to come.
Yes, I do need to chat to it. So, at that first part, when I first meet an athlete, is really about understanding where they're at and what their goals are.
Yep.
And building that rapport and getting that trust. And that can actually take anywhere between 5 minutes, depending on how receptive they are, through to spending a good 15, 20 minutes understanding them and what they're about.
Do you get trained at that? Did you get trained at that, or is that talent that you have? Because you're really good at it. It's one of the things I noticed is that you're not just. I think one of the failings can be that people will have this wonderful scientific background and they will just kind of say, well, the science says you should blah blah blah, and there's no traction with that knowledge. Whereas with you, it's like you're a coach as well as providing nutritional advice.
Yeah.
Did you get taught much of that, or
not at all? No, I just picked it up, and I think it's a big part of my personality, that I've always loved people and been a people person.
You're a connector.
I'm a connector, absolutely. So I love that part of it, but it is quite challenging for some people that it doesn't come as naturally to. But I feel
because you'll often generalizing, but it is possible to gravitate towards science because you're a little bit scared of humans.
Absolutely.
That can happen.
And you work in a university, you see that a fair bit, yes. No, definitely. But I think the skill is about having the scientific knowledge and then being able to apply it to different situations and understanding what is practical. So I spend a fair bit of my consult understanding someone's life and where they've come from, what they've done before, what their life and training is like, to understand what type of nutrition advice would actually work and be practical for them. So once I feel like we've built that rapport and I notice that they're starting to open up a little bit more, that's when we get into the details about their diet and what they're eating.
That's very personal, your diet, isn't it? Like, I eat quite well, but if I were to come and sit down with you and show you my diet, I would feel a bit of a level of shame. Like, I should be better than this. Like, people have their guard up at the start, don't they?
Absolutely. We all do. And it's actually hard to think about what we eat and to remember it as well. Like, you think, I can remember what I would eat normally, but then we tend to forget about those snacks that might come in or things that are actually important when you're already working with athletes that do 80% of things well. Yeah. It is that 20% that I'm looking at to really take that performance to the next level. So I ask lots of questions and get as much detail as I can around what they're eating. And then I will spend some time educating, so talking to that athlete around what they're going to see in their meal plan that I put together for them and why. So what they're doing well at the moment, what we need to improve in, and what that would look like. Yep. And then I work with them to actually plan what that will look like. So absolutely. So, finding out, well, this is what we need to do. What sort of foods would you be comfortable eating and trialing? So getting them to make the decision so they own it a little bit more.
That's great. So one of the things I most enjoyed, so the format with the Boomers was selfishly really good, which was that we would have you do workshops and presentations in the education room here at Core Advantage, which is something we're going to roll out in a different format to Core Advantage athletes and the wider public here, which will be really exciting. So watch this space. The thing I loved about that is the way your presentations broke stuff down clearly and also pointed out other not fringe things, but less obvious things. I mean, I think it's relatively obvious we need to have good proteins, good natural sources of carbs, and we need to get good fats. But there were other more peripheral things I hadn't really thought of, like making sure you're getting that leucine for the recovery triggers, and even the gelatin stuff. Can you tell us briefly about the leucine and the gelatin? Then I'd like to talk about what else is kind of over the horizon, because I think the gelatin stuff is kind of a little bit over the horizon for a lot of people, but it's good. I'm a believer. Yeah. And all of our athletes. It was when we at one point last season we ran out of the gelatin, and there was nearly a mutiny. Because I was like, I need it for my knees. It feels really good. Tell us about the gelatin first.
Yeah, absolutely. So the gelatin stuff, I would say, is definitely on the horizon, in that we're still needing to do more research in the space. But there was some really exciting research that came out just last year, actually, that showed that taking 15 grams of gelatin, which is 2 tablespoons, and for those that don't know, gelatin is what we make jelly from. So it's very rich in collagen, so it's a form of collagen. That it can actually...
And it's a very clean protein, isn't it?
It's very clean protein, absolutely. But it can act as a protection for our joints and our tendons. So there was some very good research to show that it helps to build that extracellular matrix and can almost act as a bit of a cushioning for prior to exercise.
So cool.
It's really cool. But really what came out of it was that it's the amount and the type of gelatin that's important. So when the research first came out, I thought, well, this would be great to take to the boomers and to take to the cats, because we had a lot of players at the cats, especially that do struggle with different tendon-related issues.
Yep.
So trying to look at that is something that was a priority. And also our injured players and returning to play. And this research is from a professor, Keith Barr, who's over in the States, and he works a lot in NRL.
Okay.
And he's used it numerous times in different protocols and players, and what's been shown is that it really improves that return to play from an injured player, and that's when they're taking it 3 times a day.
3 times
those
a day.
doses. Yeah. And the key there is an hour prior to movement or exercise.
And so I take mine just a little randomly.
Yep.
I don't take it before exercise. What's the benefit of the hour before? What are people getting out of that?
Yeah, so that's where it acts as that protection. So it allows.
And it gets there that quickly.
Yeah. So that's what they showed, is that's when the
So
hour
they attached
before.
like radioactive biomarkers to it or something like that?
No,
Was
so
that
we
another
don't.
study?
The mechanisms are still being
Right.
investigated.
Right.
I guess at this point in time, it's saying an hour because that's what was used in the study protocols, and that's the effect that was
That's
shown.
amazing that it's so quick.
It is, yeah. It's but then you think about protein when they say to get it in straight away after training, and that's because it is delivered quite quickly, and that's because it's in such the pure form of it.
Yeah.
So the different types, when I first read the paper and did some research, I thought, well, this is fine. I'll make jelly out of 15 grams of gelatin.
Okay.
So I bought gelatin. I thought, I'll take
This
it.
is going to taste delicious. You're going to love me.
Fantastic,
Childhood
yes.
memories.
And we came up with a plan that it will be, pre-game jellies and etc. Well, if you've ever tried making jelly with 15 grams of gelatin, it does not work. It goes to pretty much like a rock.
Like toffee kind of,
Yes, absolutely. I almost burnt my kitchen down. It was absolutely horrific. So then doing some more research in the area and talking to some of the researchers on the study, you can actually buy hydrolyzed collagen, which is pretty much gelatin, but they've just ground it down so it's dissolvable in anything, and it's odorless as well. So gelatin
and
has
virtually tasteless. Like
virtually
the tiniest
tasteless.
hint of taste.
Yes, absolutely. And you can mix that into smoothies, into juice, even into water if need be. So that's what we started to purchase, and that's what you have. And so using that as a pre-training.
It's pretty cool. And anecdotally, the athletes swear by it.
I've had really good feedback, and in particular from some of the boomers girls that were coming back from ACL injuries, and they were back in full training, but always felt
Felt good.
And taking that really improved just that pain that they would get often. So it was really cool.
Is it so? It's clearly relevant for tendons, cartilage. Is it also relevant for muscular injuries, like muscular strains and stuff?
Yeah, that's what we're not sure about yet.
Okay.
There probably hasn't been enough done in the area. From a joint perspective, and even it's used a lot even in the elderly, and it's been shown to have some really great outcomes there as well. So again, it's an area that's doing a lot more research is being done around it. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes and to understand better the doses that are needed as well. So we say 15 grams again because 5 grams was shown to have no effect. 15 grams was shown to have an effect. So what is that magic number in
What's the
between?
sweet spot?
We're not sure. So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. And so I swear by it. We swear by it at the Boomers. You're obviously utilising it heavily. Is it more? But I'm a little ignorant about how more widely understood. Is it one of those things that's gaining ground all over the place?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And that research has been picked up in a number of different areas internationally. So it's definitely getting traction. And I guess there are companies around that specialise just in gelatin because it's a...
We will provide a link to one of those.
Yes. There's a demand in it coming up. So, yeah, it's a new area.
It's pretty cool. And the other one, the leucine one, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us all about that.
So leucine is one of our branch chain amino acids, and there are there's 20 essential amino acids, and essential amino acids are what we need, and you can get most of them from the diet, but you can't. Let me rephrase that. You can't make 9 of them, so you have to get 9 of them from the diet, but you can get 20 of them from the diet. Yep. And animal products are generally complete, which means that you're getting all of the 20.
Profile.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you have 3, which are your branch chains. So your leucine, your valine, and your isoleucine. And the leucine is the magic amino acid, which really helps to switch on the protein synthesis process. So cool. Getting 2 to 3 grams of leucine in after a training session is what you need to start that recovery and that synthesis of the muscle protein. And normally, if you were to say have a whey protein shake as an example, that would give you that 2 to 3 grams of leucine. Yep. You can also get that in about 600 mils of milk.
Which is quite a bit of milk.
It is quite a bit of milk. It is. 2 or 3 eggs will give that to you as well. So you can definitely get it from food.
Natural sources as well. And so you could have 3. You could have a glass of milk and 2 eggs, and you're probably good.
Absolutely. You can mix it up, definitely. What becomes tricky a lot of the time is vegetarians can still meet that with things like milk and eggs, but it's when you follow a vegan diet that you have to be really on point with your nutrition around exercise if you're an athlete, because there aren't many plant-based vegan products that will give you that hit.
Right.
You can buy some supplements that will, but as far as natural plant-based foods go, you generally can't meet that 2 or 3 grams of leucine.
And can leucine be laboratory made? Can they?
So you can take your supplement that's just a leucine supplement. So you can buy leucine straight on its own. Or a very common supplement is your BCAAs, which are your branch chain amino acids. And they're often
gone in and out of fashion. Like for a little while they were like everything, and then it's like, we're not so sure. Where are they? Where are we at with BCAAs now?
It probably dabbles in both. It really depends on the individual athlete, and it depends on what their goals are. So athlete that's really trying to build a lot of mass and a lot of lean muscle, they would use a branch chain amino acids intra-workout to start that muscle recovery process while they're still working out.
Yep.
So it adds that protein source.
So they're lifting and they're sipping it as they're lifting.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And a lot of the branch chain amino acid formulas will often have almost a little bit of a pre-workout substance in there as well. You can definitely get the pure ones, which I always suggest, but some, depending on what type of athlete you are, may take some of that.
Depending on your taste buds as well.
Exactly right.
They don't taste amazing.
Yes, exactly right. They're getting better, but then they can be used as well. So if you're working with bodybuilders, say, or athletes that need to make weight, but also need to train and still training, branch chains have no calories associated with them because you're just taking the amino acid. Okay. Whereas when you take a protein powder, you're obviously getting the calories from the protein. So, you can really manipulate that and still give the nutrients to kickstart protein recovery and synthesis while not having the calories.
So you can really customize it better for exactly what you need to be doing.
Exactly right. It's
kind of like the other great thing you put us onto was the SHOTZ, SHOTZ.
Yes.
That product.
Yes.
And we'll put a link to their stuff as well. That's an Aussie product. And they've taken, so the thing with drinks like Gatorade is, yes, you're getting your electrolytes, but you're also getting all the sugar they want to give you. So if you're a really high sweater, you are stuck with also being a high sugar ingester if you go in that way.
Yeah.
Whereas, I like the shots the way you can completely separate it, so you can control what you're doing a lot more with it.
Absolutely.
I'm a little addicted to them because I know there's no sugar in them, or very, very microscopic amounts. I love them.
They are good.
They're fizzy and tasty. I used to have a solo addiction.
Yes,
I used to just love my soft drinks, and I've gone the last couple of years 0.
Well done. That's a good habit to keep.
To tell the truth, Friday night, it was we had a little sort of dinner for my son's birthday, and it was just a really quick impromptu thing. And we grabbed fish and chips, and they gave us 1.5 to a litre of any soft drink we could choose.
Oh, yeah.
And I did have a Pasito.
Yeah.
It was my first one in about a year. It was so sweet. When you're not having
them,
it was just like, what is this syrup?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where products like the shots can be really good for athletes in particular, because it's giving you those electrolytes that you need if you are sweating a lot, or if you are in, again, hot conditions or doing back-to-back sessions without the sugar, if you're not wanting the sugar.
Yeah, really good. Really effective.
Yeah.
So to round things out, I was wondering if we could just touch on, what do you think are the couple of, the 2 or 3 biggest mistakes or misconceptions that you see people coming through the door with?
Yep.
And just, I know it's hard, but sort of a bit of a takeaway of, what someone listening to this who wants to get their act together, get on point in their nutrition might think about.
Yeah, absolutely. A big one is the carbohydrate story. And there's been so many different diets in the last few years that have really focused on low carbs.
Yep.
So things like the paleo and the keto. And I guess the biggest misconception is that carbs are evil and that they will gain weight.
Yep.
And what it's about is periodizing your carbohydrates. So what that means is looking at your training week and looking at what your goals are and making sure that you're having the right type and the right amount of carbohydrate when you need them. And for somebody, as an example, that's trying to gain size and mass, those carbohydrates, I'm talking about athletes now, will be a very important part of their diet.
Yep.
Somebody that's really trying to reduce body fat and change body composition, they will still be important, but important at the right times and in the right amounts. And then understanding that, okay, well, depending on my week and how that looks from a training perspective, I'll need to periodize my carbohydrates around that and pull them out at those times. So
in terms of the periodization, I never know when I lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah. And then I run Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah. And I'm always in two minds because on the Monday, I'm always like, well, I've lifted this morning. I should eat lots of carbs. Yeah. And then I get to Monday night and I'm like, well, I'm only running tomorrow. I probably don't need as many carbs. And I can never decide which day, because I know I should periodize things, but I actually don't. Yep. Do you have a rule of thumb for how you work out when someone should be having a lighter carb day versus
a heavier carb? So again, I would ask someone to tell me when their big sessions are. Okay, so in what session, and whether it's a cardio-based session or if a core-based or a field-based.
Whatever's the bigger session.
Yeah, or a strength-based. What session do you need to perform in, and what session are you doing to get the miles in or to potentially help with reducing body fat? And so someone might be lifting heavy to build that size, but then running to strip some of the fat, as an example.
Yeah, that's sort of me. I'm running to not get fat.
Yes. Yeah. So then what I would say is you need carbs pre-strength to give you energy to lift more. Yep. If you're going to lift more, you're going to gain more size. Yep. So you need carbs around that. It's very interesting research that's more recently been showing that, yes, you do need carbs post-strength training, but the job that carbohydrates do as well is that they give us energy, obviously, but they also help the uptake of protein, okay? And they help to kickstart muscle protein synthesis as well. But in strength training, strength training will stimulate muscle protein synthesis on its own. Yep. It doesn't need carbohydrates to make that happen. Right. So the most important thing after strength training is going to be your protein, because you don't actually need the carbohydrates to kickstart that. Right. So yes, you need some, but you don't need to go crazy post-strength. You have it pre-strength, then you have a normal amount.
So I train first thing in the morning on empty tummy. So I'm better off making sure that if I'm lifting Monday morning, my Sunday night meal is going to be higher carb.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. And maybe even think about having something like a banana or a yogurt
banana.
before strength training to
Right.
get some carbs in.
Yeah.
Then I would say you finish like having some nice carbs afterwards at lunch, decent amount, but then you might taper off as the rest of the day
Especially knowing when you're running the next
because
day.
you're only running the next day.
Okay.
But then you would have some carb after running to replenish your glycogen.
Yeah.
So you would run fasted and then you would replenish with glycogen and build up again, ready for the strength
lift.
training.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's a common misconception.
It's a common misconception.
What's the easy thing? Last question.
Yeah.
What's, because we see in the gym, we talk about these open layups, these easy things people just aren't, so for instance, stretching your hip flexors, like you've got tight hip flexors, it will alter your pelvic angle, weaken your core, shorten your stride length, deactivate your glutes slightly, and mean you don't run as fast or jump as high.
Yep.
So that's like such an obvious open layup that people don't take.
Yeah.
What do you think's the equivalent in sports nutrition? What's the obvious, easy, low-hanging fruit? What's the easy thing people don't grab?
Yeah. Well, firstly, before we get to sports nutrition, you have to make sure that your basics are right. Your fundamentals, exactly. And that includes things like eating regularly, not, eating everywhere and skipping meals without any strategy around it. So having a consistency to how you eat, eating whole foods and less processed foods.
Yep.
So if you do that to start with, you will already feel 100
You're a step ahead of the game too, aren't you? Most people,
Exactly. And it's very hard in today's world to not eat processed food.
Yeah.
So to think about that, if you feel like I've actually got the basics right and you're going to sports nutrition, then it's going to be regular protein intake every 2 to 3 hours to build lean muscle.
Yep.
Okay. So 20, 30 grams. And that's all you need. You don't need heaps, but regular protein intake. Eating 2 to 3 hours before your training, so your last main meal, and having protein within 30 minutes after. Yep. And those three things.
That's really important, that window of higher absorption post-exercise, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that will just help with the fueling and the recovery. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is having at least 2 to 3 litres of water a day.
People so underdo it for hydration, don't they? Yeah.
Even elite athletes that I work with sometimes have no more than 2 glasses a day.
Shout out to our swimmers here. We have a partnership with the Cheltenham Swim Club, which is really good partnership. Swimmers are, I found to be really meticulous. Like you say to them, do this, do that, and they just do it. Yeah. And when you get success with them, the great thing is it's measured in tenths of a second. So they all really notice the improvements. But one of the things that appalled me is when I asked them how many of them hydrated during their session, I had like 2 hands out of a squad of 20 guys. Yeah. Because they don't notice they're sweating because they're in the water.
Absolutely.
And it was really interesting to focus on that as well. So that's a big building block.
Absolutely, definitely.
That's cool. All right, Dom, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
So to reiterate, Dom is available here every second Monday night. Do get your bookings in early. She books out very rapidly. Don't expect to just book in the day before. It's all done on our website. We'll put a little link there. We'll put links up in our show notes to the various things we've chatted about. And do stay tuned. There will be some other news around workshops and other bits and pieces related to this space. Because my thing is, and our thing as a business is, it's great to take care of the strength, the speed, the power, all that kind of stuff. But it really is built on a foundation of recovery and nutrition. And the way nutrition feeds into recovery as well, it's all a kind of an interconnected system that you want to maximize every element of.
Couldn't agree more.
Cool. All right. See you guys.
See ya.